A very warm welcome. Happy to have all of you today as part of the discussion today. We really wanted to bring this together and then see what's the next phase of digitization looking like for us, and what are the things that as a country we should work and focus together. Sanjeev ji, I wanted to bring the first question back to you in terms of how have we progressed from a government point of view, from a country point of view. How do you think our digital journey has been, and what are the upcoming policy initiatives that we can look forward to?
I also look back with great satisfaction at what we have achieved in terms of government services. Aadhaar has enrolled more than 1.2 billion Indians. The GSTN, the GST network, has actually brought more than 11 to 12 million people, I'm told, businesses which are indirect tax paying online onto the backbone. And this whole growth means that today, we are looking at burgeoning UPI transactions. You are looking at Jandhan Aadhaar accounts, Aadhaar seeded Jandhan accounts, which are more than 42 crores. And some of this has resulted in the greater efficiency of flows. So not too long ago, you saw that when the COVID related lockdown happened, we were able to targetedly transfer more than 31,000 crore rupees into the 20 crore women Jandhan accounts. That was stupendous. Or if you look at the astonishing sums of money that are going into farmers' accounts through the PM Kisan Yojana and so many other related schemes. None of this could have been achieved if the vision of the Prime Minister way back in 2015 had not been translated into the kind of developments that you are seeing. First, the mygov.in app, now all these various transformations that I talked about. I think it's amazing, but we do have a long way to go.
We've got Rajiv here, from RBL. Rajiv, I really wanted to, bring this space to you in terms of how we've sort of taken this opportunity and taken it to the market.
The learnings we had is if you bring simple banking services to the doorstep of the customer, where the customer is used to going, whether it's the home or the shop closest to their home or shop closest to where they normally work, I think you can solve a lot of issues which are, pretty much how you highlighted telecom. Telecom became a sachet style service very early, and it moved from, what I would say a host to host structure to more a democratic structure. So this was our thinking. And I know that those days, some of these protocols and networks were not as ubiquitous. We worked on IMPS. And if I today reflect back on our 5 years in this space, I mean, the scale is enormous. And what is now happening is the ease with which we are able to provide the banking backbone. Okay, you guys provide the payment infrastructure backbone, but we provide the banking backbone to our partners, because I don't think we ever imagined that we will need to create thousands of branches ourselves, because that would have taken us forever. And just why rebuild decades worth of social and physical relationships which already exist? So I think that experimentation 5-6 years ago has now blossomed into a significant scale.
There are a lot of companies which are trying to do a certain offline base, and this is typically offline, which is not dependent on network. How do you think, are these technologies sufficient enough? Do you think there is some limitations around them? How do you think they're going to support this journey, or there is something that needs to do something more than what we've done?
I mean, there is no silver bullet for any of these. It's multiple steps that have to be done. Several experiments have to be tried out before we can get to understanding how to expand the merchant network. So rather than looking at whether it's a soft pause or a contactless, I think it was better to look at, kind of what are the triggers, or what to some extent, what is the carrot and stick kind of stuff that we have to do to be able to get the merchant acceptance network far more ubiquitous than it is currently. And it has made a lot of progress. There's no doubt about that. And I'll probably turn to the stick first because I think it's important. I think cash is the biggest enemy of digital. So as long as cash is continuing to be available, you've got to be conscious of that fact and got to see what we can do to make cash that be a bit more difficult to get at times, because that will then turn the thing. And the pandemic has shown that, the post demonetization has shown that, all these events have shown that we still see cash being available. I mean, read articles that ATM withdrawals continue to increase. The ticket size of an ATM withdrawal has gone up, presumably because of the COVID and the pandemic, etc. So I think something around that has to be done. I think the first thing is for the merchant, how do you reduce the cost? And that's where things like soft POS, etc. come in very handy, because the merchant is looking for something that's convenient to use, that doesn't take up real estate space. He's got a small little shop, and if he's got to put a POS machine, it's going to be expensive. Really, soft POS helps that cause. For slightly larger merchants, it helps in that you can do, very effective queue management, for example, with soft POS. Unlike physical POS, where you're constrained with an kind of machine, here you can literally, tellers can spring up, by the hour, depending on how the queues are moving. So yes, the merchant is looking at these as what can reduce his friction, what can reduce the kind of, ease. For him, it's the next sale that he needs to do, and anything that helps that will help it. The other is from a customer standpoint, it's the same issue. How do you make it seamless? And there, I think the whole work being done on customer resolution or dispute resolution, reducing technical declines, reducing business declines is important. Because if you have, even 1 in 100 payments, 2 in 100 payments not going through, that particular customer gets impacted, right? So how do we make it faster and quicker is another aspect of it.
So what do you think are the current ground challenges which are restricting these digital payments, while commercial being the one that the ecosystem needs to focus on?
Yes, there are challenges, and to start with, very strangely, the challenge is not necessarily coming either from merchants or from customers or from banks. It's coming from mobility itself. Because, for example, if your network doesn't work properly, okay, the Wi-Fi or some of the broadband doesn't work at times, then it can create a little bit of a challenge. So, for example, a consumer experience, if you go wants to make a payment, and I happened to be personally, I went into the grocery shop, then I had to come out on the road and make that payment because somehow the network was not catching there inside the shop. So these small things. So I think mobility and network availability is going to be a very important enabler for not only for merchant payments, but for Digital India vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. I think that's extremely important. Second is, still there is some amount of unwillingness to take payments in digital form, especially the larger transactions in certain hospitals and certain, still, I think that smaller transactions are going through. Some of the larger transactions are still not going through. It's not very rare that somebody will say that we'll charge you 1% extra and things like that. And there I agree with Shalini that we need to, finally time has come when we have to take a stick approach, because that's just not done. Okay, so that's the second part of the issues. The third is again coming back to mobility. There are a lot of feature phones in the country today. Okay, now it's not that you cannot do a digital payment through feature phone. There are those technologies available, but naturally, as the price of smartphones are coming down and as people adapt to the smartphones more and more, I think that's where another challenge we have, and that will enable, and that will be more true for deeper geographies and the bottom of the pyramid and so on and so forth. And last is, I think this is where all of us have to work, and banks have a huge amount of responsibility along with everybody in the ecosystem, is customer education and merchant education. We have to, even if it is good, even if it is beneficial, even if it is convenient, unless you do it once or twice, you don't know it is convenient. So customer education and enablement to make that happen is going to make a lot of difference.